way we work, the way we try to be inventive, the way we keep our curiosity, the way we don't replicate ourselves. We don't have a style, we still don't have a style. I think those are pillars that make me feel very, very optimistic.
I think we feel the responsibility of architecture. I mean, is a matter of building is always, it is a part of responsibility of this, of just the fact of having a building, you know, in the city, in this place, and you have the responsibility of people that will live, will see, will feel this building.
It's more about how meaningful they are. And by meaningful, it can be meaningful for a certain group of people, meaningful for a city, meaningful for a neighborhood, meaningful for a profession. It's that makes the building special.
The resolution of seeing architecture has become much more clear when I started to work. I didn't know that the resolution could be so fine in the world of architecture. For example, just seeing little corner or just seeing the reflection of glass, it really changed my perspective.
It's like a machine. It happened to you to open your engine cover of your car and to see how everything is organized, or to look how the watch is made inside. And this is the way that our architecture is made, with science, with the precision.
The unicity of the building workshop is the way we work. It's the methodology of working together, how we develop the project. The space reflects the way we work.
The interesting thing is that as a group, we are working together to maintain and move forward this incredible legacy that Renzo gave us, and he gives us every day.
You need also to understand how to recover, to mend the relations with the surrounding areas, and also understand what you can basically give back to the community, to the place. It's fundamental.
So I started in the office in 2009, almost 15 years ago. And it happened a bit unexpectedly because I sent a CV and almost a year went by and I was already working for another firm. And then suddenly I received a call, and we have seen your CV, probably they find it at the bottom of a pile, and we found it interesting. And then my journey here started, and the journey, it's really almost a redefinition of what architecture means, because I had been working for some years already, 4 or 5, as a qualified architect, and it's true that everything you have learned so far, you sort of reconsider it a bit. It's an amazing school of architecture here. The way in which the models are used, the projects are undertaken, questioning every little small element of the project. So, and then you start learning about this method and making it yours. And I think the journey is mainly this, over the years, making that system more and more your way of looking at architecture.
So it's been 10 years that I have been working for RPBW, and about 12 years ago, I was in New York. I studied in New York and then graduated, and I was working there, and I started to feel like I'm Japanese, I'm not American. Do I want to stay here forever, or do I want to start looking into another opportunity? And then I told myself, if I ever pick the best firm that you ever want to work in the world, who would it be? By far, the top was RPBW.
So would you say that the studios always had that space for newness and radicality, or new and radical voices, or did you have to sometimes push to make that happen?
I think that exploring new ways to build buildings is completely ingrained in what has been done in this office since the beginning, and it's still the case. So when you join the office, you in a way you get in this sort of research about what you can do new, what you can do better. Our office is one that doesn't try to create a sort of signature. Each building is a research in itself. It's looking for its own identity, and in this research for the identity of the building, you always have to push the boundaries, trying to find something new, something unexpected. Is almost the raison d'être of this office is this push for finding new ways of expressing what we do.
Yeah. So like not being rooted in a signature basically sort of propels the studio to do new with every project because there's no signature to go back to.
Exactly. Yeah. So because each building needs to find its own soul, you cannot just let's say use a certain vocabulary that has already been created. So you need to find what is new, what is essential to this building. And if we look across the portfolio of the office, you can see all this enormous range of different buildings. Sometimes it's the reflections. What is new is more on how to combine the tradition with state-of-the-art technology. Some other times it's more about how to open the building to the city, how a building can change the social fabric of the city. Some other times is about the use of materials, and even some others is a mixture of all these things. But every time on each building there's something new which defines it.
What about you, Rocco? Because home means so much to you. What's the idea of home when you work with Renzo Piano Building Workshop, and how do you like? Have you always felt at home, or did you sort of like sometimes push to have that radicality in the organization?
I think speaking of radicality, it has been always that way, and then it's kind of the nature of who we are in a way. Yeah. For example, every time when I cross the street and see the Centre Pompidou, after 40 years, it almost looked like a mistake that the building is there. Yeah. And after 40 years, I cross in front every day, but it still looks like this. Wow, there's something shocking about it, and there's something very interesting and energizing about this project.
Absolutely love that allegory about the Pompidou Center. Love that. Yeah, you can be as foreign or as at home you want to be in a city like Paris or any of the other metropolitan centers.
So at the beginning, this project was in steel structure. Actually, it was not in wood. And in one point, the client asked to make this building partially in wood structure. And then we took this comment home, and then one day Renzo had this idea that let's do this whole building in wood structure. And we were like, what do you mean? This 120,000 square meter building can be made in wood? We were quite shocked and questioned ourselves, but as we go more and then study rigorously, structurally, engineering, all the MEP aspects and then all that, we found that it's possible. And the client was very happy about our reaction to go like fully radical into this direction.
No, the client came already with a very clear idea about wood, but it took us some time to really give it its more meaningful expression, because they came saying we would like a building that really mobilizes a lot of wood, and they were saying this because they really like this building to be a manifesto. So wood in Japan is used for traditional architecture, but not so much for big buildings. So they really wanted to use this building to push the Japanese wood industry forward. So it needed to be a manifesto. So the idea was you need to use wood extensively. And then it took some time, but because mainly Japan is a seismic country, which means that construction of high-rise buildings in wood is very complex. But at some point, the idea came, no, the structure of the building needs to be in wood. The columns of the building need to be in wood. And that research came from taking inspiration from different things. One was looking at the forest in Japan, which are particular because the way in which they grow cedar in Japan makes the cedar go abnormally vertically to the sky because they plant them very close together. So you get forests where the cedars really go abnormally high, almost 70 meters, and then it's an amazing landscape, no? And then the other thing that was important, and the client expressed it, was the traditional architecture where the column, and especially the circular column, the wooden column plays an essential role. So combining these two concepts is, okay, but the building needs to be a forest of wooden columns, like cedar trees, with thicker tree trunks at the bottom, and thinner tree trunks as the columns raise up to the sky. And this naturally follows the load path, the structural load path, where you need bigger sections at the bottom and smaller sections at the top. And then the columns obviously had to support the building, but we also wanted the columns to become the main expression of the building. And the second decision was to bring the columns at the perimeter of the building so that they constitute also the facade and they express themselves and they become the essence of the building when seen from outside.
For us, the expression of the wood column is what's the most important about this project. So we pay the most attention to it, and then the marches of wood column and its expression, and then the coronade that we created next to it is something that it's since the beginning, and then that's kind of the metaphor of Japanese architecture also. And then for that space to be the center point of a public gathering, it was quite interesting and important for the project. And I think how all this come together was this idea of a discussion between the client and the design team. It's kind of one of the piano method that we call is kind of a ping-pong matches between the client and then our firm.
You quite quintessentially described the act of creating any architecture where everything just seems like it seamlessly came together, but everything behind the scenes is a bit of a...
It's quite messy in a way.
Yes.
Yes.
With the particularly high sustainability quotient of this building with the use of CLT and the terrace gardens and everything, that's quite green. I want to ask about the Renzo Piano Building Workshop ethos with respect to sustainability. What are some sustainability commitments that you begin a project with, perhaps, that are not specific to this project, but something that it's quite intrinsic to the very fiber of the workshop?
I would say that from almost the creation of the practice, there has always been this research about mainly finding buildings that are set in a place and they bring a beneficious impact to that place instead of bringing, let's say, a negative impact. So in this ethos, which is bringing a positive input to the place, sustainability is ingrained in this attitude. So the shape of the building, the energy, let's say the energy efficiency of the building, the impact on the place itself, all this has always been something we have been very careful about.
I first came in the office in 2009, so it was about 15 years ago.
Years, yeah.
So it's almost a round number. And my experience before was studying engineering school and having some work experience in Italy first.
Right.
So I was very interested in the way we build things. I'm from Venice, so it's almost a miracle that Venice is still standing there. So how building stands, how the details are done, but I was very interested in this approach of the human being into the construction, how the society and architecture can dialogue together, and how big is the impact of architecture in the society. I could understand from the first ideas, first concept, how then you really build and you keep these concepts all along the project. And also how is the energy to keep the main concept alive during all the phases, and to how this concept drives you along all the project, and that you don't get lost in the construction. The people around is also something that for me is very, very important in the office. We always feel a team, and there are a lot of people around us that gives a lot of energy, a lot of knowledge, like an encyclopedia, lively encyclopedia around us, and people full of energy that really trust in what we do. So the site as well gives us this power, because every project has a different context, a different client, a different site, different environment. So we have to respond to every project differently. So that's a good challenge, and I think all of us, we try to, with the same approach, with the same energy, we try to go in the direction of innovation and in the future.
That's really interesting, because in my mind it paints a picture of like almost this cyclical diagram, where you say like one of the entities is the ethos of Renzo Piano Building Workshop. Whether that ethos drives the people, or is it the people that drives the ethos, or is it just, I think, a constant cyclical motion, I would believe.
Yeah, I think that there is both goes together. And there's a sort of work team, and working in the team, the same energy we put together to achieve what our ethical approach is.
So coming on to the project, which is Asian University for Women, I want to begin with understanding on a more, let's say, social level on what the brief of the project was from the client side, and how you and your team at RPBW ended up interpreting it perhaps, or like completely following it. How was this sort of interaction with the client in getting the project to where it is today?
So the first approach of the client was clear. There was a master plan made by Moshe Safdie, and we were intended to do the first phase of this master plan. The first phase were intended to be the academic buildings, so let's say the heart, the real center of the master plan. It was clear to us that the site gave us this strength of understanding that nature is one of the central parts of the concept, and that this needed to be preserved. And the idea of having occupied only 1/10 of the site was a strong statement. Vegetation, nature, water.
You were talking about like a university in the middle of a forest, basically.
Yes, exactly. Right. So this idea drives us to rethink about the overall master plan, how to concentrate and to densify things, to make things more centralized, and to keep the forest and the nature around.
What do you think Renzo Piano Building Workshop brought to the project in terms of a more social angle, in terms of really empowering these women who have faced potential abuse and who do not get the same opportunities in Bangladesh?
So the first approach we got is that transparency and a place where people can feel home and to get everybody together without creating spaces that were divided, to feel this sense of community was a reflection from a side, an ethic point of view, because students needed to feel part of the all same world, let's say, and as well feeling intimate in their own residence, but at the same time to feel that they are not hidden, that everybody can see each other, and this sense of security, the feeling that we are all safe at home, it was very important. The other important point is that students are living in that place for years. So how architecture, the fact that students will live there and they will remember this forever in their life is a crucial point of their life, and the impact of architecture and nature in this trip of the life is crucial.
Absolutely. So it imprints basically.
Imprints, exactly their own. So there is a part that is given by education, of course, but architecture is part of the education, because how we tackle this element, the building needs to be low carbon, low energy. We have to teach that the earth is fragile, that we have a certain way of tackling this issue in a sober way. So it's a sort of helping with architecture to create, to promote education, to promote the link with the nature and with the environment. The knowledge of what's happening in Bangladesh, what's the status of the arts and the construction in Bangladesh is one of the first things to understand. What are the materials, bricks, concrete, wood, how we can build in Bangladesh in a subtle way and a sober way. Because sobriety is one of the words we were using since the beginning, because we do believe that is also something that you can teach, because it's part of this learning of the university, how there is no reason to land in Bangladesh and to try to do a fancy building. Is not at all about that. It's about to create a place where the student will remember forever, where students will live well, in a good condition, create a community and staying together. So architecture is sort of background. Is not the thing that needs to be imposing, is a sort of background allowing students to live together.
So this is about a heavy renovation of an existing building, where this part is completely landmark, is preserved, and the corner is the Paris Heritage statues, including what you see inside. All this Art Deco decoration was there and has stayed inside the building. So where you are on the street, you can see what happened inside. And during the night, when you have the light inside, it's like a lantern inside the city. You can see here the top two floors are the Pathé headquarters.
Right.
And then we have one level B2B with access to the room. And then the rest we have 7 screening room inside the
Right.
building.
Okay.
Maybe we go there now.
Sure.
What we did here, we create around this atrium is what we call the ring, is a big structural beam, 3 meter tall, and this beam is supported by 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. Distance between columns about 11 meter, and everything is suspended from the top. Why suspended? Because in the structure, when you suspend element, everything work in tension. So the section could be smaller and element could be lighter. It's about lightness and transparency, like always. The best time to come here is really in the morning when you have good lights. We have to deal with solar heat gain, so we add these small wings with different in the right location and this south, because this is south facade. In the hot season, we can open the louvers on the top, and the space can work in like a natural chimney and natural ventilation. I mean, this building is so deep. It was very much important to bring light inside for people. And as always in our project, light is very important material. This is the immaterial material, but it's very important. And in the beginning, this was a restaurant, and then they changed mind and they leave it as event space. They can rent it, and you have a wine bar, the wine wall here, and this bar is completely open to the city. That means you don't need to have ticket to come to the cinema. You have a direct access from outside. The interior is also landmark, but they have a designer who work on the interior design, respecting the rules. And the idea is to reveal the historical side of the building and not to hide it. So we're saying this is architecture for the office is really an expression of lightness, transparency, and luminosity.
Yes.
And you see this in all our projects.
It's quite,
transparency, and luminosity. It's very strong. Common.
Visible.
This is the red thread. Le fil rouge. I came to the office because I was so much interested about the way that buildings are thought and designed. It's like a machine. It happened to you to open your engine cover of your car and to see how everything is organized, or to look how the watch is made inside. And this is the way that our architecture is made, with science, with the precision. We're talking about the lightness of the bird, not the feather, with precision and with science.
There's a number of legacy projects that Renzo Piano Building Workshop is dealing with, right? But it's also about constantly sort of disrupting. I mean, especially you see the Pompidou, it was, all those years ago, it was, of course, it was Renzo Piano and Richard Rogers. But that spirit of like doing something quite radical has always existed with the organization. But at the same time, it's about creating these landmarks or working with the history and the context of the city. So where do these like sort of these energies come together for you in your work process?
It's always working with the context. And working with the context does mean many things. What the context is about. If we are talking about Centre Pompidou, the real context of Centre Pompidou is not the neighborhood, is the political context. It was just after the 1968, this revolution, big revolution. And this building was like a response to a new era, also to the industrial era. We don't have a style, but we know how to introduce poetry inside our world, because the difference between construction and architecture is when you introduce poetry. When you introduce poetry, you start to talk about architecture. When buildings start to sing, and this is what Paul Valéry, it's a famous French philosopher, talking about you are working in the city, sometimes buildings are completely dumb, nothing to do. From time to time, you see some building talking to you, and rarely some buildings are singing. When buildings start to sing, you start to talk about architecture, and so poetry is important.
This building is a kind of a big toy in some way that has a lot of rules that probably should be kept in consideration. When it was designed in '77, it was a kind of a big revolution. In a part of Paris, it was very old, a bit abandoned, and this building it was kind of a magnet for this part of the city. All the city was renovated around, and so it was a building that really changed this part of the city. It was some people hate him, some people love it, and it's still the case. Some people consider it horrible, some people consider it beautiful, but for sure it represents a revolution in the world, in the history of architecture. Maybe Paris was the only city that could accept something like this. Don't forget that the Tour Eiffel has the same kind of criticism when it was done. They wanted to demolish, and it's still there. To be in some way the guardian of the integrity and the architectural integrity and the history of this building. And so this is what we are doing right now. One of the things that worry everybody about this closure of the building of about 4.5 years is that this part of the city is not alive anymore, because you don't have anymore this attraction, you don't have anymore this magnet. Sometime our big boss, Renzo Piano, said that we are the Quasimodo of the Centre Pompidou.
I joined the studio in 1988, quite some time ago. The beginning was different compared to nowadays, obviously. The office was in the historical center in Genova, smaller office, less people, a lot of projects, a lot of work to do. I had no experience at that time because, you know, you go learn a lot of theory, but then practice is something different. We have this way of working together that is a collaborative way, not only between us architects, but between us, the client, the consultant. The project is a kind of big ping pong between all the involved parties, and it evolves thanks to this kind of frequent interaction. But the materiality is something very important for us. We keep, even now with the 3D modeling and the graphic representation of that, we keep doing physical models. We keep doing mock-ups, real scale 1-to-1 of portion of buildings, because this is the way we have to test if the project is what we have really envisioned.
So coming from that to two very important projects that you've worked upon for the studio. So we have and two quite distinct, quite different typologies. One we have Istanbul Modern, and the other one's the apartment buildings in the Sydney Harbour. So two different projects, and obviously you worked upon so many projects in the studio. I want to ask you how your experience was sort of, in between, say, defining a more cultural identity for the Istanbul project, and here I think it's much more contemporary, but also structural considerations while keeping the signature lightness of Renzo Piano Building Workshop in mind. So how was it working on these two projects with respect to the things that I just spoke about?
The Istanbul Modern was a new interpretation of a cultural site. The museum is part of a bigger renovation of the old port. So it's transforming a brownfield into a new part of the city. In a port, what you do is something that has to talk with the portual area. So we imagined like either a container or a ship docked into the mainland. So the building has to not interrupt the visual continuity between the water and the park. So we lifted, as we do many times, the building from the ground to leave this visual permeability that is not only just visual, but is also something that invites people to enter the building. We did the ground floor free of charge so that people can enter, and it's actually conceived to go through because we have a door at the north and a door at the south. So the people coming from the city, coming from the north, is crossing the park, crossing the building, and finally reaching the water side.
Perhaps we can use that as a segue point for the Sydney project, because I imagine that is like that sort of transparency, especially with respect to the scale of the building, is something that's really interesting. Could you talk more about that, please?
Yes, of course. The Sydney project is a lot of square meter. It's like 112,000 square meter with a relatively small site. It has some similarity with the Istanbul project because it's on the water side. It's part of refurbishment of the port area. So again, a transformation of brownfield into a new part of city, a new quarter of the city. We came up with this idea of a cluster of three. We made it triangular because we wanted to, the idea was to make something that was looking like a crystal spike. And the client wanted to have all the apartment with a vista. So there were two main vistas, one towards the Opera House and the Sydney Harbour, and one to the Blue Mountain on the other side. Given the proximity, we had to twist around the triangle to try to give to each face the view. So we had to, it was a long part of the project.
The junction basically gets to face the whole thing so that two adjacent sides get the best of the view.
Yeah, so we moved these three towers a lot and we twist them around, trying to find the best configuration to have the great view. And then the big work was done on the facade. Sydney is a city where you live outside, you experience the fresh air, it's not that cold, so most of the year you live outside.
Very, very open living. Most of the houses have like these patios and everything. You can just
So we wanted to give this possibility in a skyscraper, in a whole tower. are here in front of the Torre Piloti. The Torre Piloti is a project that is still under construction at the moment, not completed, and it was a donation that the Renzo Piano Building Workshop made after an accident that happened in 2013 in the harbor of Genova. The Renzo Piano Building Workshop decided to donate a project to the city, to the Port Authority, to reconstruct the new tower that would be a new working tower, of course, but also a kind of new symbol, new landmark for the city, giving also a tribute to the victims. The new tower had to be in a very secure place, and for that reason we found this place that is quite internal into the, next to the entrance, but quite internal into the area. We built some additional piers to protect from the ship collision, and now the new tower sits in a special island that was built with very heavy foundation. The cabin where the pilot sits are at 60-meter height, and with the roof and the antenna we reached the 95-meter level. The structure is very sophisticated and allowed us to use relatively small dimension for the elements, because we introduced the system of trusses and bracing with the cables that is speaking the language of the port. It's similar to the crane that you see around in the port, and is similar as well to the sailboat mast. It speaks the same language. We wanted to do something that is integrated into the condition where it sits.
Waterfront di Levante of Genoa is it's a master plan that the office developed starting in 2020. It's part of a larger project that the office developed in the early 2000s that is called the Affresco. We studied the whole arc of Genoa, of the city of Genoa, that is roughly 27 kilometers long. A small part of it is already developed. There is the Porto Antico. It's the project that the office designed in 1992. And the second part that we are of the Affresco that we are touching is this that is called Waterfront di Levante. It's based on the idea that Genoa is a thin line. There's no way that Genoa can develop itself or regenerate itself without looking at the sea. First, culturally, and second, also space-wise. The first big move was to bring back the water to the old walls of the city of Genoa. And so the idea from the office was to bring back the sea to the city, not a beach kind of like a recreative sea anymore, but more one related to shipping and to the marina. We have the old arena, it's been refurbished, the arena for the sport, 2 residential buildings. This long building is for the startups related to the blue economy, so related to the sea, and then an hotel with additional residences. We felt immediately there was a good mix of functions. But the whole waterfront is basically based on 3 pillars, 3 cornerstones that are one, to build less than it was built before. So we are building 50% of the square meters and 1/3 of the volumes. Second, to give back this area that we are not using to public space. So it's like a 1 kilometer long park plus the marina that I just talked about. And third is to make a sort of manifesto for the new typologies of buildings. So all the buildings in Waterfront have to be net zero building, energy, so using very few energy from the grid. And they all use solar panels on the roof, and for the heating and cooling, they use water exchange. So they use the water of the canal for heat exchange.
When you say manifesto, I mean, is it, will you also be writing or publishing some guidelines, or is it just the way these buildings work, they act as manifesto for future generations?
It's a really good question. I say the manifesto because one thing that we're proud of in our office is we say, and we have the luxury to say no to projects that are not valuable and don't have a meaning. In this case, before starting the project, we wrote a series of rules, a manifesto, together with the city of Genoa. And this was embraced by the city of Genoa, by the municipality, and was developed into the piano urbanistico. So the urban planning absorbed our ideas. So when the private investor came, they had to stick to the rules. So that's why it's a manifesto, because they were almost obliged, in a good sense, to stick to the targets and to the high aspiration of the master plan.
The idea that this is something quite urbanic, or it's like a different scale of operation compared to like single buildings where it's easier to have like, a signature perhaps. How would you say the overall philosophy or the ethics of Renzo Piano Building Workshop are on urban projects, maybe not just Genoa because this is where we are, but urban projects all around the world? What is the general line of approach for a project such as this?
I think it's again asking yourself why you're doing something, and if the project is meaningful. Architects have a very important role in society. We can do great things, we can also do great damages. And so asking yourself before you start a project if you should do the project or not. And that's the approach we had in Genoa. Start from the public space and see what's left. What's left is going to be our challenge to be good architects and make a successful building.
Right, maybe we can use that as a segue about starting from public spaces to perhaps talk about the Johns Hopkins University project a little bit. Could you tell me if that was the approach, where you started off with like the greens or the commons perhaps, and then moved on to more individual structures and defining their identity a bit?
So we're talking about a completely different scale. The client came to us asking for something that they never thought of. It was a building devoted to study the evolution of democracy in the present time, over the time, and in the future. So again, when you start with a program like that, you start asking yourself questions again. What is the core? What is going to be the soul of a building like this? So the basic idea to start with is like, let's bring back the forest.
Yeah.
Democracy, to be studied, requires some time, and some good time, almost like a retreat.
Yeah.
And we started with this metaphor of a retreat in the forest. Bring back the forest of Maryland that is there, which has beautiful forest, and inside there, build a small building that is very transparent by definition and by its materials. It's very open, again, by definition, because it's talking about democracy, but also by the fact that it's very porous at the ground floor. Yeah. And so that's the core. That's where faculty from all over the world are invited, together with the resident faculty, and study how climate is impacting democracy, how clean water, the approach to water, the microeconomies are guiding where democracy is going, or not going, unfortunately. Yeah. But that was the core.
A bit of a complicated question, so stay with me here. But what I really find interesting in your answer was about the intangibility of something that was already, I feel, given to you as a concept, which was designing a school of democracy essentially. So I find it hard to escape the idea of democracy equating to, let's say, personal freedom and choice, where there is I think part of the concept of the forest is to give like a lot of public space back to the public who are the actual owners of it. On the same hand, you can choose to answer this between like an individual project, which is this university, or any of the other projects you may have handled. The idea of when architects assume charge of a site, or when they design, there is an authorial agency, there is a certain authority that architects like to wield. Have you often found yourself sort of battling between the two? Have you found yourself stranded between the two? Have you found yourself dealing with balancing these two things, which is the idea of, like, let's say, intangibility of concepts, or giving back to the public what essentially belongs to the public, and the authorial agency that an architect brings to projects?
I think you have to train yourself to do that, to understand when you're, as I said, it's a balance between a technical job and impacting, almost like poetical, very, very much urban, but also poetical approach. And the best way I find is to listen to clients, to consultants, to the group, to the journey companion that you have. Also look at what the older partner have done, learn from them, and also by teaching to younger people, you can always kind of verify what you're doing. And it's a matter of balancing the two. So there's no like special answer to that. It's more like practicing. You get to grasp where things are going.
You learn every day, even if it's through disagreements, maybe.
Absolutely. Conversations are always helpful, whether they are good or bad. You are in agreement or disagreement. It's always good to hear bad comments, and sometimes, even when you have read a bad article about the project or a state of a project, rarely there's nothing good in criticism. There might be some things that you disagree with, but they always bring you somewhere else, and they always add something to the conversation. So it's a learning curve. It's something you learn day by day. For an architect, it's always it's difficult to speak and to talk unless we talk about architecture and the projects we are making, especially in this building workshop. I'm born and raised in Genoa, so I'm a product of the land, and I grew up studying architecture in Genoa. And when I got here, it was clearly where I wanted to be. The office never goes on, never starts a new project without thinking we're going to build it, and we never draw from day one something that we are not thinking we're going to build. So for me, it was kind of like immediately I fell in love with the attitude of the project, of the office, of the building workshop. Renzo once told me, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing something 5 times a day? And it's true, because architecture is a very technical job that has impact on the people's life. It's like riding a bicycle. No? One day you start, you fall, then the first day you fall 20 times. And then little by little you're riding your bike and you don't know how you did. And this is how I felt. Because I was also in this feeling of going back to the colleagues. I go back to the colleagues, even to the students sometimes, when I have an idea just to check. It's natural. And the partners used to do this with me. The former partners, Renzo does this with us. And it's kind of this that keeps you going. And so in the same time, when you are a grown up, you kind of feed yourself with the energy of the young people, but also when you're growing, you learn from the way they approach something. And so at the end of your experience, you have almost like a palette of things that you kind of feel, because you saw them happening, and then you test yourself. You have to be brave. You have to be curious, and you have to be brave.
We are on the north part of Milan, in an area called La Goccia. It's a name that came from an historical conception of a city, that this site has a line of a railway that creates this sense of goccia, that in English means drop.
Drop.
And, you know, we, 2 years and a half ago, the Politecnico, that it's a school of architecture and engineer in Milan, decided to come here in the office with this idea, saying, okay, in this area we already have our campus, we have already some building over there, on the grey part, but we want to, you know, develop a campus. But they were having, in a way, an idea that it was not only to enlarge their campus, but to create a kind of mix between a school of engineer and architecture and the future of a city. So this area has a long story due to this amazing forest. It was an industrial place that it was abandoned for 30 years. And it was all constructed. There was many of building there. But in 30 years, because it was contaminated and so abandoned, the nature completely take over of the place. And this is the, you know, a view from above. If you go there, you know, the first time we went there, this is what we found. A huge forest with some existing building from the 50s. And the first thing that we said was like, we need to try to, in some way, to recover and bring back to the city this amazing forest. So walking here, you know, we draw like two main lines that you see here. This one, red one, we said this will be the street that it will be the center of a campus. And another line here saying like, north to that line, nothing needs to be built. You know, this needs to be completely protected and preserved. And so I'm thinking about what could be the decontaminated philosophy for these places.
Here, it is important to preserve also the trees of the forest, not only the idea. And so we decided to do some kind of experimentation and doing a site remediation using phyto and bioregeneration. So using plants to basically decontaminate the soil. Because the traditional way of decontaminate the soil are you dig and then basically you fill, you move the soil. But this means that you destroy completely the sense of the forest and of the area. And so this is one part of basically the idea that everything here is like a big lab to experiment. These are the ancient buildings, the two main gasometers, which are of course the main landmarks of the area. But there are also fantastic brick buildings with this distinctive roof made with shades with
very characterful buildings. I mean, I have to add. Yeah.
And so basically, as Renzo always said, the project was basically already there. It was written in the soil.
The Politecnico came with a great idea to different type of function. So the idea was not only to create space for classroom, but to create a space for the future of the students. So they give us like, we will have some classroom, but the main heart of the development it will be what we call startup. The main and strong idea of a campus is like how we can, two main things, how can we give unity to this campus, and at the same time how we can look at the future, you know, try to build as our objective a zero carbon campus for the future. And this is where inspiration from the existing building and function came together, and this is where we thought about this roof that as the foot, you know, in the inspiration of existing buildings, so a shed, a typical shed type, industrial, you know, shape, and connected to the sense of energy and sustainability for the campus. So what we did was how to create a kind of element like that float above all the building, and not only. So it will give this idea of unity and protecting.
So it covers the gaps between the.
It covers a gap between, as you can see here. You know, this is the sense and imagine that we would like that the campus had, with full of light. You know, very transparent, not only from a visual point of view, but also from a concept, an idea, you know, how you...
These buildings just like sort of flow into each other.
Exactly, and they are also connected by these transparent bridges, depending on the function.
Here you can see what is the commons. Basically, is a big circular common ground, where basically there are three elements that plays with it. The two gasometers and the new Aula Magna, which is the building there. You can see the rendering there.
Yes.
Okay, these are two models of the new Aula Magna. As you can see here, there is a kind of relation with the gasometer that we are basically in the nearbys. And this is a detail of the upper part of the compressed columns. The structure is a combination of tensioned and compressed elements, and of course the goal is to have a big circular areas without any kind of columns inside it. And this model is basically express well what we like to do, is to to develop every single detail, to touch it, to work on every single connection, to understand that everything goes well. And these are basically a sketch, a diagram that shows the future, the future path that will basically we are going to create inside the forest. The idea is to have a very natural area, so without hardscape, so having just a softscape, a permeable floor, using also, to trying to avoid as much as possible the contamination of this fantastic environment, which is it.
Sorry, we don't want to create a park. This
no,
is the difference. Not a urban park, but
it will be a urban forest.
After, when you come out from the forest, you bring the trees and you insert it in between the buildings. Right. So it's like a little finger that coming out from the forest and fertilize the street. And one, as we were speaking before, there will be this street, almost 90% pedestrian, always in the center of the campus, but it's almost 300 meters, not too long, where you will have this sense of building, coming together. So you will walk with a layer of trees and after a layer of building and a roof above. So this sense of urban element where function are next to each other and where we hope people will enjoy and live. And the idea is that these spaces at the ground floor will be open to the city.
Basically, here you can see the scale of the big roof.
Yeah.
More or less from here to there, it's 400 meters long. And this roof will provide most, if not all, the energy that the campus will use during the whole year.
The complexity of the project that you've just showcased is quite well handled, as I spoke, in the way that it's almost an urban intervention while also handling the more, let's say, molecular, smaller spaces on a very humane level. So there's also the environmental impacts. But what would you say is the starting point for Renzo Piano Building Workshop?
The starting point is always walking the site. There is nothing that you can start to think about the project before has been on the site of that specific country, city, landscape. So, and what we normally do is we go on the site, we walk, normally always in at least 2 or 3 people of the team, because you need to try to listen as much as possible the site and share with your colleague what are you listening and what you are start to imagine. Whatever project you need to create, a small building or a much building complex like that, you need to make sure to keep the DNA of a place. As an architect, or this is our way to look in project, you need to create space where the people want to stay and where the people want to live, where the people want to work. So it's not just a gesture, it's never a gesture for us. It's really more a sense of place and place for people.
I can just add that, of course, the first point is to go there, to listen, to understand, and this is of course fundamental. Then of course you need also to understand how to recover, to mend the relations with the surrounding areas, and also understand what you can basically give back to the community, to the place. Because giving back an area, a place, a square, a park, it's fundamental for a project, as it is fundamental to use as much as possible the soil, the materials. It is important to minimize in every single way and to have some kindness in the approach.